सचनस्य मानः धनुरधिप्रवतायासि हरयन् जिगीषसे पशुरिवरवसृष्टः कूचित् जायते सनयासु नव्यो वनितस्थौ वलितो धूमकेतुः अस्नातापूर्षभो न प्रवेति सचेतसोऽयं प्रणयन्तमरतः
But first he met a silver-grey expanse where day and night had wedded and were one, escaping over a wide and shimmering bridge. He came into a realm of early light, and the regency of a half-risen sun. Out of its rays our minds full of was born.
शिशुमनत्वाजेन्यं वर्धयन्ति माता विभर्ति सचनस्य माना धनुरधिप्रवतायासि हरयन् जिगीषसे पशुरिवयवसृष्टः कूचित् जायते सनयासु नव्यो वनितस्थौ पलितो धूमकेतुः अस्नातापूर्षभो न प्रवेति सचेतसोऽयं प्रणयन्तमरतः
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're following King Asupati's travels through the inner planes of consciousness. We've seen him go through the vital worlds, first through the vital worlds that are similar to our vital, but then he climbed higher and higher, but found still no satisfaction to his call, to his needs and desires, no release into infinity. And so he changed course and descended into the lower realms of the subconscient, down towards the inconscient, still seeking the key of nature's change. And there he found it on the locked last subconscious floor. And he took that key and underwent a kind of transformation. And he was projected upwards into the highest heavens of the vital worlds, where all was intense delight and beauty, very divine worlds. But there too, he didn't find a complete satisfaction that he was seeking. So he had to continue on his journey upwards. And at first he looks up and he can see the realms of mind, and kind of towering upwards towards the infinite. So then he proceeds into those realms of the mind, but he begins at the lower end of that. And that's what we began reading last time. And I'll just review a little bit. These first realms of the little mind in which he arrives, in which he begins to explore, are very close, he says, to our world here, to our material world. So this is on page 239, about halfway down. I'm just going to review. I'll read a little bit from this. He says, at its low extremity, held difficult sway, a mind that hardly saw and slowly found its nature to our earthly nature close, and kin to our precarious mortal thought that looks from soil to sky and sky to soil, but knows not the below nor the beyond. It only sensed itself in outward things. This was the first means of our slow ascent from the half-conscience of the animal soul, living in a crowded press of shape events in a realm it cannot understand nor change. Only it sees and acts in a given scene and feels and joys and sorrows for a while. The ideas that drive the obscure embodied spirit along the roads of suffering and desire, in a world that struggles to discover truth, found here their power to be and nature force. So this is the realm in which he is exploring, and we see how it's similar to our mind, our physical mind, which also is focused on outward events, outward seeing. Kind of guides us through the paths of suffering and desire. So we finished up on page 240 towards the end. Or about 3/4 of the way down. To eternal light and knowledge meant to rise. So that's where we take up today. And perhaps Paula, would you like to begin?
To eternal light and knowledge meant to rise. Up from man's bare beginning is our climb. Out of earth's heavy smallness we must break. We must search our nature with spiritual fire. An insect crawl preludes our glorious flight. Our human state cradles the future God. Our mortal frailty, an immortal force. At the glowworm top of these pale glimmer realms, where dawn sheen gambled with the native dusk and helped the day to grow and night to fail. Escaping over a wide and shimmering bridge, he came into a realm of early light and the regency of a half-risen sun. Out of its rays, our mind's full orb was born. Appointed by the Spirit of the worlds to mediate with the unknowing depths, a prototypal deft intelligence, half poised on equal wings of thought and doubt, toiled ceaselessly twixt being's hidden ends.
Thank you. Aswapati had been kind of going through a material mind, kind of a very rudimentary type of mind. And now he climbs up kind of towards the top of that realm, at the glowworm top of these pale glimmer realms. So this glowworm is kind of maybe symbolic of it. It's still kind of crawling along, but it's glowing. But it's entering, well, from that top, he escaped over a wide and shimmering bridge and came into a realm of early light and the regency of a half-risen sun. Yeah. So dawn sheen, so it's the sheen, the brightness, the glimmering of the dawn, of the growing light of knowledge, intelligence, gambled, kind of frolicked or skipped along with the native dusk. So dusk is sort of native to that realm, kind of a half light, almost a darkness. So the light is kind of gambling, kind of interacting with that darkness, lighting it a little bit, helping the day to grow and night to fail. And from that realm, he escaped into a realm of early light and the regency of a half-risen sun. And he says, out of its rays, our mind's full orb was born. So that suggests kind of more the fullness of human mind, a kind of a greater intelligence, a brightness, awareness of what's going on is born from this realm of early light. And that realm was appointed by the Spirit of the worlds to mediate with the unknowing depth. So it's as if it's a mediator between the Spirit and the depths, which are unconscious, unknowing. And then he describes it as a prototypal, deft intelligence. So it's a prototype. It's the beginning, a kind of an early model of a type of intelligence, a deft intelligence, which means it's kind of clever and nimble. And it's half poised on equal wings of thought and doubt. And it toiled ceaselessly twixt being's hidden ends. So those lower, obscure, unconscious depths and the higher heights of knowledge and spirit. So it's toiling ceaselessly, kind of trying to fly up on its wings of doubt and thought, trying to create some kind of image, some kind of knowledge that will help it in its flight upwards towards awareness. But it's struggling. So Helmut, would you continue?
A secrecy breathed in life's moving act, a covert nurse of nature's miracles. It shaped life's wonders out of matter's mat. It cut the pattern of the shapes of things. It pitched mind's tent in the vague, ignorant vast. A master magician of measure and device has made an eternity from recurring forms, and to the wandering spectator thought assigned a seat on the inconscient stage. On earth, by the will of the arc intelligence, a bodiless energy put on matter's robe. Proton and photon serve the imager eye to change things subtle into a physical world, and the invisible appeared as shape, and the impalpable was felt as mass. Magic of percept joined with concept's art, and lent to each object an interpreting name. idea was disguised in a body's artistry, and by a strange atomic law's mystique, a frame was made in which the sense could put its simple picture of the universe.
Thank you. These first lines suggest that this mind, this mediator between the spirit and the lower realms of unconsciousness, was there secret within life, a secrecy breathed in life's moving act. It was already there, a covert nurse of nature's miracles. It shaped life's wonders out of matter's mud. So we see already this mind covertly operating within life, creating the forms of life. It cut the pattern of the shapes of things. It pitched mind's tent in the vague, ignorant vast. We see actually this mind kind of operating almost as a kind of co-creator of the world, of the universe. And it is responsible for taking what is otherwise kind of a indistinct mass of energy and cutting it into shapes, into manageable bits of perception, and then concepts into things. I mean, we divide up this world into little pieces that we can manage and understand. Otherwise, it just becomes a kind of an infinite, unseizable movement of energy. But this mind cuts it up into pieces so that we can take hold of it, begin to understand it, begin to take control of it. So he describes this process. A bodiless energy put on matter's robe. So we know kind of from physics and chemistry now that this universe is kind of built from these infinitesimal particles or otherwise just some kind of waves of energy. But it takes on a form of books and floors and walls and ceilings and people. So how does it do that? Proton and photon serve the imager eye. So these are the atomic particles and the particles of light. Helps us to perceive images of the world, to change things subtle into a physical world. And the invisible appeared as a shape, and the impalpable, the kind of unable to feel or touch, was felt as mass. And the magic of percept joined with concept's art. So the percept is what we are perceiving, our perceptions of things, joined with what is out there, objective, the concepts, and lent to each object an interpreting name. So we begin to identify each thing that we're perceiving. Idea was disguised in a body's artistry. So this is still an operation of mind, but it's disguised in forms. We perceive it as forms, not as an idea that we're creating of the world. And by a strange atomic law's mystique, a frame was made in which the sense could put its symbol picture of the universe. So through that operation of mind, we're able to create a kind of a symbolic picture of this otherwise mass of energy or infinitesimal particles. So we'll continue. Do you want to read? Okay. Nara?
Even a greater miracle was done. The mediating light links bodies' power, the sleep and dreaming of tree and plant, the animal's vibrant sense, the thought in man, to the effulgence of a ray above. Its skill endorsing matter's right to think, cut sentient passage for the mind of flesh, and found a means of nascence to know, offering its little squares and cubes of word as figured substitutes for reality, a mummified mnemonic alphabet. It helped the unseen force to read her works. A buried consciousness arose in her, and now she dreams herself human and awake. But all was still a mobile ignorance. Still, knowledge could not come and firmly grasp this huge invention seen as a universe.
Thank you. Here, Sri Aurobindo is elaborating on that idea he mentioned earlier, that this mind was appointed by the spirit of the worlds to mediate with the unknowing depths. So this mind is a mediator between matter and spirit, between the higher reaches of consciousness. So here he's describing that the mediating light linked body's power. So it's linking the physical to the spirit above. The sleep and dreaming of the tree and plant, the animal's vibrant sense, the thought in man to the effulgence of a ray above. So this is a higher consciousness above, being linked with matter and with life. Its skill endorsing matter's right to think. So it's kind of linking matter or awakening this consciousness within matter. It cut sentient passages for the mind of flesh, the mind that's within matter, and found a means for nescience to know. You have to remember that all the higher realms of consciousness are involved, have involved themselves in matter. They're hidden within it. And this mediating ray, this mediating mind born from this realm is linking that submerged, involved awareness within matter. It's aligning it, linking it to the higher knowledge above. And how does it do it? It offers its little squares and cubes of word as figured substitutes for reality. A mummified mnemonic alphabet. It helped the unseen force to read her works. So mummified, it's shriveled up like a mummy. So it's a very kind of obscure, still mind. Mnemonic alphabet, it's giving us symbols to help us remember, to get some kind of grasp over the world around us and of ourselves. So it's helping the unseen force to read her works, to understand itself. As this life emerges out of matter, this mind is helping it to become aware, to begin to read its self and the world in which it lives. A buried consciousness arose in her, and now she dreams herself human and awake. So as this consciousness arises out of this involved state within matter, within life, eventually it awakens to a state of our state, of humanity, of our human intelligence. Her? The unseen force. The unconscious force is kind of, at first there's force, it's unaware of itself. Right? As the evolution proceeds out of matter, in the beginning there's just kind of an unconscious force operating. It's not self-aware. But as it grows, as it evolves, it begins to awaken to awareness. So then she begins to read her works. It begins to look at itself and understand what's happening. How this force is operating. So we can look out ourselves and try to read the forces of nature, try to understand them. This consciousness is arising out of matter, in the life forms, and gradually in the human mind. But all was still a mobile ignorance. So it's still a kind of a shifting knowledge that's not secure. Still knowledge could not come and firmly grasp this huge invention seen as a universe. But it's shaped it into forms, it's cut it into manageable bits of information and knowledge. It's able to perceive, to objectify that world around it, that mass of moving energy. It's able to begin to devise some ideas about it, what it represents, what it is. But those ideas still are kind of doubtful. Remember, it was rising like a bird on wings of thought and doubt. So we can continue, Tinika.
Specialist of logic heart machine imposed its rigid artifice on the soul. In aid of the inventor intellect, it cut truth into manageable bits that each might have his ration of thought food. Then new-built truth slain body by its art. A robot, exact and serviceable and false, displaced the spirit's finer view of things. Polished engine did the work of a god. None the true body found, its soul seemed dead. None had the inner look which sees truth's whole. All glorified the glittering substitute. Then from the secret heights a wave swept down. A brilliant chaos of rebel light arose. It looked above and saw the dazzling peaks. It looked within and woke the sleeping god. Imagination called her shining squads that venture into undiscovered scenes where all the marvels lurk none yet has known. Lifting her beautiful and miraculous head, she conspired with inspiration's sister brood to fill thought's skies with glimmering nebulae.
Thank you. So we're continuing here this awakening of mind in humanity at the human level. and we see here the workings of the logic's hard machine, the logical mind, imposed its rigid artifice on the soul. So an artifice is like a artful or crafty expedient, kind of a substitute in a way, but kind of intelligent substitute. An aid of the inventor intellect. It's almost like it's not actually the full intellectual idea and thought, but it's this logic is kind of an aid of it. It's a kind of system, a way to think along certain, guided lines with certain rules that we follow so that we can be more certain of our outcome of our thoughts. Let it to go into a kind of a linear way, step by step, towards conclusions. It cut truth into manageable bits that each might have his ration of thought food. Then new built truth's slain body by its art. So it's creating a kind of a logical image, reflection of reality, but as it does so, it's actually kind of killing the truth. I mean, it's creating a substitute, and it doesn't see the truth, and it even mistakes itself for the truth. A robot, exact and serviceable and false. So it creates a very defined, exact, rule-based, conclusion about the world, which is serviceable. It helps us to use that information to operate within the world more effectively. But in the end, it's false. It displaced the Spirit's finer view of things, which suggests that the Spirit has its own kind of vision of reality, which is subtler than this logical intellect. A polished engine did the work of a god. None the true body found, its soul seemed dead. It doesn't see the soul within because it's focused on those outward aspects that it can sense, that it can verify. So the soul within seemed dead. None had the inner look, which sees truth whole. It can't deal with the whole of things. That's too unmanageable for mind, so it cuts it up into pieces. And all glorified the glittering substitute. Everybody said, look, how wonderful our theories are of the world. Then, from the secret heights, a wave swept down. A brilliant chaos of rebel light arose. It looked above and saw the dazzling peaks. It looked within and woke the sleeping God. Now he's suggesting that something from the higher mind, something above this logical intellect, comes down into humanity and is able to perceive something higher above, a spiritual existence perhaps, and also something within, something sleeping within, the God within. And imagination called her shining squads that venture into undiscovered scenes, where all the marvels lurk none yet has known. So this realm is related to imagination, but maybe also something of intuition is there. Lifting her beautiful and miraculous head, she conspired with inspiration's sister brood to fill thought skies with glimmering nebula. So inspiration is kind of a power of intuition, but it hears kind of a higher word formation that images, reflects the truth. So this imagination works with inspiration to fill thought skies with glimmering nebula. And we'll see as he continues a little bit more of what he's getting at here. But it seems to be kind of these myths that have come in the early stages of mind that were kind of an inspired knowledge associated with imagination, perhaps, giving images of reality and of higher realities that the logic could not touch, and of inner realities that were lost to the outward-facing intellect of reason. So, Anandi, we continue.
A bright arrow fringed the mystery of thy face. Darkness, you nurse the wisdom's occult sun. Milk, sacred knowledge, with her lustrous milk. The infant passed from dim to radiant breasts. Thus works the power upon the growing world. Its subtle craft withheld the full orb play. Cherish the soul's childhood and on fiction's fed. Her richer either sweet and nectarous sap, nourishing its immature divinity. Down the stubble of dry straw of reason still, its heaped odor of innumerable facts, the abeyant fare on which today we live. Those stream down from the realm of early life, ethereal thinkings into matter's world. Its false whole hairs trooped into earthscape heart. Its morning rays illumine our twilight eye. Its young formations move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and you create, to feel beauty's touch and know the world and self. The golden child began to think and see.
Thank you. I was going to read some commentary by Bhavan about this passage. She says, here the poet is using symbolic language to evoke successive steps in the evolution of mind. What the powers of imagination and inspiration give to our consciousness is bright and shining, but still nebulous and cloudy, still afflicted with error. But it too has great value, bringing some brightness and an aura of mystery to the altar, the consecrated space where the sacrifice is offered up. Sometimes an altar may be made of stone or wood and be decorated with symbolic carvings, a frieze, or series of meaningful images. If we consider that the whole action of nature is an act of sacrifice, it is energy that is being offered up to higher powers so that they will come to lift things up. That is what is expressed in Sri Aurobindo's symbol, where we have the triangle pointing upwards, representing our sacrifice rising, and the triangle pointing downwards, representing the response of the divine grace. And the interaction of these two movements represents the process of evolution. The square at the center of Sri Aurobindo's symbol shows a lotus, the flower of divinity, growing up out of earth's mud towards the skies, in the cubic space which represents the entire manifestation. The divine presence in the center is always growing upwards, forever developing towards a greater fulfillment. So I think we could say that the mystery altar mentioned here represents the earth on which the sacrifice is being offered. With the coming of this new level of consciousness, of mind, waking up with logic and imagination and inspiration, a new light starts to glimmer there, an aura of light around all these forms which have already become part of the altar. Darkness, the darkness of unconsciousness and ignorance, grew nurse, becomes the one who looks after the child and nourishes it and helps it to grow. Here that growing child is wisdom's occult son. It means that within nature, within us, there is a power of wisdom which should become a full-orb sun, not remain just a little glimmer of light. That sun is still hidden, but darkness is nourishing it and helping it to grow. If we think in terms of evolution and early human beings, early mental beings, it seems that they must have used the powers of imagination and inspiration in their thinking very much more than we normally do. If we look into the myths of the past, we see people to whom myth was very important. Myths are symbolic stories which communicate symbolic ways of understanding the universe. The Savitri story is such a myth. And there are so many other beautiful Vedic myths which Sri Aurobindo refers to in the poem. Here he seems to say that myth, this symbolic thinking, suckles knowledge as a mother suckles her child, breastfeeding and nourishing it, and that such myths provide to the mind lustrous milk, nourishment which is full of the power of light. So that in time and evolution, the infant, the growing earth consciousness, the growing soul, passes from dim breasts to radiant ones. Instead of drinking the milk of unconsciousness, instinctive movement. It begins to absorb the nourishing power of the higher light. This is the way in which that mediating power is working upon the growing world, and with its skill, its subtle craft, holding back the full-orbed blaze of mind. It does not allow that to emerge immediately. It is cherishing the soul's childhood. The word cherishing means loving something and taking great care of it because it is very precious to you. That mediating power is cherishing the immature state of the developing soul, as mothers sometimes cherish the infancy of their growing children, reluctant to see them developing too quickly. It holds back its full development, but continues to nourish it, feeding it on fictions, on stories, on myths, because these stories are very rich and provide a lot of nourishment. They are like sap, the life juice of the plants. The poet says that this sap of fictions is sweet and nectarous. In a literal sense, nectar is the sweet juice produced by many flowers, but in literature, nectar is amrita, the drink of the gods, which keeps them immortal and forever young. This power is nourishing the immature divinity of the soul on myths and rich fictions, which are far more nourishing to it than the kind of food that reason provides. The poet here suggests that reason is like a farmer who grows grain. The word tilth is connected with tilling the ground in order to grow produce. The farmer tills the ground, then plants seeds, and when they grow, he harvests his tilth. What kind of crop is reason growing? Something very dry and tasteless, like dry straw or staple foods, such as rice or corn or wheat. If you eat only staple food all the time, you may get very bored with it. It keeps you going, but it is not very interesting and delicious. It may even be fodder, animal food. The poet suggests that the innumerable facts on which reason feeds us is like that. It is not really fit to nourish human beings. It is plebeian fare, food that poor people eat, not gods, not higher beings. That plebeian fare, which is fed to the mind and soul by reason, is what we modern people thrive on. He says, we grow very well, we do very well on this tilth of reason, but that mediating power which is entrusted with the responsibility of helping mind to develop in the childhood of humanity is feeding the souls on much richer food, the food of myth and symbol. That mediating power sends streaming down from the realm of early light a different kind of thinking, not the staple food of reason, but ethereal thinkings that are much subtler and more refined, coming from a much higher atmosphere. Those ethereal thinkings pour down into matter's world, like the Vedic herds of the sun. Its gold horn herds trooped into earth's cave heart. This is a reference to another key myth from the Vedas, the legend of the golden cows of the sun, which have been stolen by the forces of darkness and hidden in a cave, from which they have to be released by the combined forces of gods and men. This legend appears in the Vedas and also in Greek mythology. I think that something similar even appears in Japanese mythology. There too is a story about the sun being hidden in a cave and having to be released for the good of the world. In the Vedas, cows symbolize rays of sunlight. That is why they have golden horns. In this case, they are going into the cave, not being rescued from it or lured out. Here, Sri Aurobindo depicts them descending from their sun realm and entering into the heart of the earth, into the world of matter, where, of course, they get absorbed by darkness and ignorance, but still their very presence is supporting the process of evolution. The way that their presence is helping the mind of earth is described in this sentence. Its morning rays illume our twilight's eyes. Its young formations move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and new create, to feel beauty's touch and know the world and self. The golden child began to think and see. And she continues, the first morning rays of that realm of early light, of dawn light, illumine our twilight, our earthly mixture of day and night, our uncertainty, our half-consciousness. The young formations of that dawn world move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and new create, to become sensitive to beauty and aware of the world around it as well as the self within. It is partly because of the influence of those formations that we human beings can never be fully satisfied. There is something in us which always wants things to be better. There is a difference between the life mind, which is always chasing after change and novelty, and mind proper, which wants things to become better. We should notice this difference. Of course, we confuse the two. We tend to think that what is new is better. But the action of mind is always pushing us to progress and to labor, to dream of higher and better and more beautiful things, and to create new things, to feel and to respond to the touch of beauty, and to try to gain ever deeper knowledge and understanding of the world we live in and of ourselves. As a result, the outcome of the action of the intermediary power bringing mind into earth nature is that the golden child began to think and see. And who is this golden child? This is the divine, the immanent divine, we can say, the divine involved in evolution who is growing and will be born. His Sanskrit name is Hiranyagarbha, which means golden embryo. Sri Aurobindo mentions this golden child in several places in the poem and gives a wonderful description of him. Excuse me. And his role in Book 11. And I'll read that passage in a minute. Briefly, we can say that this term refers to the divine in the subtle worlds, who is dreaming and growing and creating the physical world from within. When the golden child becomes fully mature and emerges to rule the earth, that will lead towards the divine life, the full revelation of divinity in matter. At the moment, the golden child dwells in the subtle worlds. There it is beginning to think and to see and to dream. And these dreams of the golden child are impelling our forward evolution. So, having trouble. Okay. Paula, want to come and read this? This is last. Okay. As soon as he's.
The gold.
No, just 1 second.
No, not now?
No, just let him finish with the camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Should I sit?
you can sit. Harinyagarbha? Okay, this is the passage from Book 11 on Harinyagarbha that she mentioned.
Harinyagarbha, the golden child. The golden child, who in the sun-capped vast cradles his birth, Hiranyagarbha, author of thoughts and dreams, who sees the invisible and hears the sounds that never visited a mortal ear, discoverer of unthought realities, truer to truth than all we have ever known. He is the leader on the inner roads, a seer. He has entered the forbidden realms, a magician with the omnipotent wand of thought. He builds the secret, uncreated worlds. Armed with the golden speech, the diamond eye, his is the vision and the prophecy, imagist casting the formless into shape, traveler and hewer of the unseen paths. He is the carrier of the hidden fire. He is the voice of the ineffable. He is the invisible hunter of the light, the angel of mysterious ecstasies, the conqueror of the kingdoms of the soul.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of different from something else. So shall we continue? Would you like to read, Suresh, from the break? On page 243 at the break.
In those bright realms, her mind's first forward steps, ignorant of all but eager to know all. With curious, slow inquiry there began. Ever its searching grasp at shapes around. Ever it hopes to find out greater things, ardent and golden lamp with sunrise fires. Alert, it lives upon invention verge. Yet all it does is on an infant scale, as if the cosmos were a nursery game. Mind, like the playthings of a titan babe, has won its work, who wields a mimic sport, miraculously stable for a while, made of the sands upon a bank of time, mind and occult eternities, soulless sea. A small, mean instrument, the great Puissance chose, and urges pastime passionately versus to teach the ignorance with a difficult thought, a thought sought from an original ancient voice, and what she teaches she herself must learn, arousing knowledge from its sleepy lair.
Thank you. That's okay. So we've been given some descriptions of this early mind and its development, both of reason and its logic, and of imagination and myth, these inspirations that may come from higher realms, giving us other images of the reality. So with this as our material, the human mind grows and develops, and almost is like a child playing with things, trying to understand, building little models of reality, as if a child along the shore, playing in the sand, building little forts, which then are swept away by the waves and are rebuilt again. So mind is like playing, developing these different models of things, and always developing greater and greater ones, bigger and bigger. Alert, it lives upon invention's verge. It's always kind of seeking new inventions, new ways to manipulate the world and its knowledge. Yet all it does is on an infant scale, as if the cosmos were a nursery game. Mind, the playthings, mind, life, the playthings of a Titan's babe. To teach the ignorance is her difficult charge. Remember, it's emerging out of subconscious, out of this nescience. and it's trying to understand. It's trying to teach itself and others of what is actually going on, what's happening here. It's becoming aware. Her thought starts from an original, nescient void, and what she teaches, she herself must learn, arousing knowledge from its sleepy lair. This last line again is suggesting that the knowledge is already there, buried within matter. It's involved within matter, and it has to be aroused up. And through these processes of logic and reason and imagination, all of these things, by playing with the mind, developing these models, these images of reality, it awakens that knowledge that is there sleeping within. So maybe I can read one more. Would you like to read? So from the top, 244, the third line.
Called into our chamber from the outer world.
For knowledge.
For knowledge comes not to us as a guest, called into our chamber from the outer world, a friend and inmate of our secret self. It hid behind our minds and fell asleep, and slowly wakes beneath the blows of life. The mighty demon lies and shape within, provoked to give from its nature, form is nature's task. All was a chaos of the truth and false. Mind sought amid deep mists of nescience. It looked within itself, but saw not God. A material interim diplomacy denied the truth, that transient truths might live, and hid the deity in creed and guess, that the world ignorance might grow slowly wise. This was the imbroglio made by sovereign mind, looking from a gleam ridge into the night, in her first tampering within conscience. Its alien dusk baffles her luminous eyes. Her rapid hands must learn a cautious seal. Only a slow advance the earth can bear.
Thank you. Let's pause there. Sri Aurobindo becomes more explicit about this idea of arousing knowledge from its sleepy lair. He says that knowledge comes to us not from outside as a guest called into our chamber from the outer world. Rather, a friend and inmate of our secret self. It hid behind our minds and fell asleep, and slowly wakes beneath the blows of life. So we see that it's actually this awareness, knowledge is waking up from within us. Our contacts with the outer world are only helping it to awaken. And then he says this mighty daemon lies unshaped within. Within, in its kind of withdrawn state deep within us, it's not given form yet. It's still kind of asleep, dreaming. But it takes form as it comes out into the outer consciousness, into the outer mind. So to evoke it, to give it form, is nature's task. At first, if you look, all was a chaos of the true and false. Mind sought amid deep mists of nescience. It looked within itself, but saw not God. At first, when we look within, we don't really find a clear awareness, a clear knowledge of what is there within us. We don't see God within us. Slowly that knowledge awakens. A material, interim diplomacy denied the truth, that transient truths might live. Somehow it's not able to grasp that deeper truth of the divine within at first. It's first allowing this outer development of the mind to take place, allowing that awareness, that formation of the mind to gradually develop. It hid the deity in creed and guess, that the world ignorance might grow slowly wise. So that divine presence within, we again, the mind, the logic, cuts it up into little cubes again. And so we have this sense of our religious beliefs, our creeds, our guesses about things. We don't feel that direct presence of the divine, but these reflections of it in the divided mind. But that process is allowed by nature. This was the imbroglio made by sovereign mind. This imbroglio, it's a complicated entanglement of ideas and thoughts of things. Looking from a gleam ridge into the night, in her first tamperings with inconscience. Its alien dusk baffles her luminous eyes. When we try to understand what is there within us, that inconscience from which this is emerging, or the superconscious towards which it's developing, we can't understand. It baffles the mind. So her rapid hands must learn a cautious zeal. Only a slow advance the earth can bear. So slowly we develop our images, our reflections of the truth. And gradually that awakens that sleeping knowledge within. So I think we stop there for today. And we have some music.
A small, keen instrument, the great puissance chose. A dwarf, three-bodied trinity was herself. First, smallest of the three, but strong of limb, a low brow with square and heavy jaw, a pygmy thought needing to live in bounds, forever stooped to have effect and form, absorbed and cabined in external sight. It takes its stand on nature's solid base.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.